Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to another episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. So to get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that can be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today comes from Blake, and it is, I feel like Lesion will see a nerf soon. What are your thoughts on this? Well, I definitely would not be surprised. If we take a look at the stats that Ubisoft gave us not too long ago, you'll notice that not only does he have one of the highest pick rates in the game, only second to Jaeger, but his win rate is also fantastic. I think it comes down to a couple of factors, but really, it's a simple fact that he is one of the strongest defenders in the game right now. First of all, his gadget provides an incredible amount of utility for the defensive team and only gets stronger as the match progresses. Not only is it great at stopping rushes at the start of a match, like your Ashe, for example, it's a great deterrent in that regard, but can also just simply watch your back. If the Lesion gets taken out at the end of a match, it doesn't really matter as long as he's done his job. Now, you don't need to worry about your flanks because Lesion is doing that for you. If they do decide to try to hit you from the side, their mind's gonna go off, giving you a good idea of where they're coming from, and then you can act accordingly. You can also use his gadget offensively. If you know that they're pushing from a certain direction, you can hide behind a corner, you can wait for the mine to go off, and as soon as it does, whip around really quickly, you know exactly where they are, round the corner, and then take them down. The amount of ways that you're able to use his gadget to gather information, slow down the progress of the enemy team, and just simply do damage is staggering. Like, his gadget is one of the best utilities in the game right now. On top of that, there really isn't any objective or map where it's not smart to play as Lesion. Now, of course, there are a couple of examples where that's not the case. Chalet Garage, they can just simply open up the garage and jump on in and plant. He's not really going to have a whole lot of impact there, but you can still place his gadgets on the other parts of the map, like in Blue Hallway or back in Double Garage, and it's still going to be a really beneficial gadget if the offensive team decides to push from that area. So he's not even useless on those objectives where he's maybe not as strong. And so I really just think it's a combination of all these different factors for why he's so strong right now. And then the cherry on top, and I should have mentioned this before, is that his weapon is no slouch either. It may not be the best defensive weapon in the game, but it still gets the job done a majority of the time. And so I would not be surprised if they made some changes to Lesion. I would be saddened because he's probably one of my favorite characters in the game right now, but I wouldn't be surprised. Some people have brought up some pretty outlandish ways on how to reduce his effectiveness, making his mines no longer invisible, trying to add some other effects or mechanics, but I think the simple solution is just to revert the change that they made a long time ago now, and that is to increase the cooldown or increase the recharge rate on his gadget. Lesion back then, according to Ubisoft, wasn't apparently in the best place, and so they gave him that little bit of a buff. And so instead of doing anything outlandish, I think they should just revert that change to what it was before. Now, some people might make the argument, well, if Lesion wasn't good enough back then because he needed a buff, why do you think that that would put him in a better position? Well, even back then, I felt like he was pretty strong. He was new, and I don't think people really fully understood how powerful he was back then. The game has evolved since then, and so I think that he would still be in a very solid position, but not as strong as he is right now. And so let me know what you guys think on this topic. Do you think that Lesion needs a nerf? Do you think that he's in a well-balanced place? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. The next question is, how reliable do you think a commander mode would be in Battlefield 5, considering the attrition system and how supply stations could get destroyed on flags? I was thinking that as a commander, you could drop supplies and V2 rockets. I would like to know your thoughts on this. I don't know about you guys, but at least personally, I do not want to see Commander Mode return to the Battlefield franchise because I find really it's just a gimmick. One thing I've really enjoyed about Battlefield 5 so far is that this has been one of the cleanest experiences for this franchise in quite some time. What I mean by that is that there is a lack of gimmicks. One thing I never liked about the Commander Mode in Battlefield 4 is that it gave a ridiculous amount of power and influence to one player. If they knew what they were doing, it gave your team a massive advantage. If they didn't know what they were doing, or let's say your team didn't even have a commander and the other team had a commander, now your side is at a massive disadvantage. Now, some people might say, well, why don't we just bring back the commander mode from Battlefield 2? That was a much better system. And I will agree with you, it was way better. If you guys never played that game back in the day, essentially there were key objectives scattered around the map that gave the commander different abilities. If you wanted to ensure that your team wasn't getting scanned by UAVs, you could go take out their radio tower. As soon as you did so, if the other team wanted to get that back up, they needed to have someone go on over and repair it. If you didn't want to get bombarded by mortars, you could go on over to their artillery and destroy those. And so it added in a different layer and different strategies that currently wasn't present in the Battlefield 4 version. The thing is, though, is that I don't want those features added into Battlefield 5. Like I mentioned, this is a very clean experience. I'm not having to stare at my minimap the entire time, and as soon as they add in a UAV or something like that to give the commanders something to do, you have to give them a role, they have to have abilities, because why have a commander to begin with? Now we're having to deal with UAV spam. Yeah, I could go on over and take out their mortar system, but before I'm able to do that, they're just bombarding my team the entire match. And if I do successfully take it out, they could probably just go on in and repair it and then resume as normal. And so long story short, I just don't think that this is necessary. This is a lot of effort just to give one player something to do, and this is a lot of effort that would give that one player a lot of influence on the match, which I just don't think would benefit the game in the long run. I know a lot of people would like to see the Battlefield 2 version of Commander reintroduced, but I just think at the end of the day, it would be another gimmick. The next one comes from Chase, and it is, what do you think about a cooldown system for leaning? Making it so that you can only lean a certain number of times in a short amount of time. It would work similar to CSGO cooldown system with crouching. So I feel like a lot of people have been bringing up not only the crouch spamming, but also the leaning that goes on in Siege, and I can absolutely see where they're coming from. If you go against a player who is constantly crouching up and down, they're leaning back and forth, not only does it just simply look ridiculous, but it also makes them a much harder target to go against because they're constantly moving around all over the place. But that's the exact reason for why they're doing that. They're trying to make themselves a harder target, and they're trying to use the movement to give themselves that slight advantage so that they can win the round. Now the question now is, though, should Ubisoft do anything about this? On the one hand, people argue, no, absolutely not. People are just using the movement to try to get that edge, and it actually is a skill that you have to master. It's not easy being able to bounce back and forth and maintain the accuracy to line up those headshots. Some people might disagree with that statement, but when you're constantly bobbing up and down, that does move where your crosshair is, and being able to maintain and line up those shots is quite difficult, and that is a skill that you have to acquire. And so if you do want to elevate up to that next level, you want to get up to diamond, this might be a tactic or a strategy that you need to just simply learn, and it becomes a part of Rainbow Six Siege. On the other side of the coin, though, people are arguing that no, this shouldn't be a part of the game because it goes against the spirit of Rainbow Six Siege. When you purchase Siege for the first time, were you expecting 3-speed operators rounding the corner, wiggling back and forth and crouching up and down? No, you thought it was going to be a slow, methodical, tactical experience. This is the same arguments that people were making back in the day with drop shotting. A lot of people were upset about that tactic, and Ubisoft agreed that it went against the spirit of Siege, and they removed it. Now we have to ask the question, is this along that same lines? Does it go against what they're going for with the game, and should they make any changes? But then we also have to ask the question, how far is far enough? At the end of the day, people are always going to be looking for that advantage, and so after they make some adjustments here, there's going to be something else that people use, and so should Ubisoft adjust that and make some more changes? If they keep chipping away at the game, that skill ceiling is going to lower, and that's something that people have always enjoyed about Siege, that high skill ceiling. You always have something to strive for. You always have something to learn when you play, and if they keep chipping away at that, that may no longer be the case. It won't go away entirely, but you kind of get where I'm going. And so overall, I'm not really sure on this topic. I am leaning a little bit more in favor of them making some adjustments, but I can absolutely see the other side of the coin, and so I think it's just going to come down to Ubisoft on what kind of game they want Rainbow Six Siege to be. The next question comes from Joshua, and it is, do you believe that Siege has gone or is going in a direction that'll never be what it once was? Considering the game used to be just pure technical gameplay, whereas now it's based off of gadgets to cancel out other operators completely. Well, I will agree with you that the game has changed significantly since it was released, and it will never be the same, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'll also agree that some of the operators that have come out does have more reliance on trying to counter said operators, but once again, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. You have to remember that when Rainbow Six Siege first came out, no one knew what they were doing. No one had perfect strategies. We were all learning together, and so even if they brought back the original build with only the original operators, all the original maps, it would probably not only be filled with bugs and glitches. They made a lot of progress in that regard. I think the game is just better overall because of that, but also it wouldn't play the same as as we remembered because everyone has learned those strategies. We're not making silly decisions and doing weird tactics because of that, and so it just would be a completely different experience. Not only that, but a lot of the base operators, your Ash, Sledge, Thermite, Thatcher, Twitch, those are all some of the best operators in the game that see constant play. And so if everything has been shifted in this direction where you're trying to counter all the new characters, well, if that was the case, then why are all the base operators still 100% viable? Well, maybe not 100% viable, there are some exceptions, but a lot of them are still some of the best characters to play as. And so yeah, I do agree with you. The game has changed, it has definitely shifted, and Ubisoft probably could do some stuff on their end, but as long as the game is well balanced, and as long as it's fun, I don't think it's something to dwell on. Yeah, guys, that is what it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you think that Rainbow Six Siege needs to return to its roots? Do you think that it's not necessary? Let me know down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.